Okay, so where we left in the last class?
Toboggan ride with friction.
Mm, actually we are reading which one? 5.17. Acha, okay, okay. 5.17. Just wait. The toboggan ride, isn't it? Okay. Yes, yes, yes. I got it. Okay. So actually, just wait. Um, okay. So finally, probably we got the equation as I was telling you. Ax is equal to Ax is equal to Ax is equal to z, then sin alpha minus mu k cos alpha, mu k cos alpha. Okay, so this was the value we got from example 5.17 when the toboggan was riding with friction, and that too with an accelerated motion, constant acceleration. Now there are four interesting cases. First, suppose the friction is zero. Okay, so that will bring us to example 5.10. Suppose if the friction is zero, then this mu k is equal to zero. So if mu k is equal to zero, then the second term of this equation will be zero, and you will get Ax is equal to, we will get Ax is equal to z sin alpha, isn't it? So, and this is the results we got from example 5.10, isn't it? So, and here you will see that if alpha is equal to 0, suppose you are dealing with no friction, like a wet icy cover or snow covered road, and if suppose alpha is equal to there is no friction and you are dealing with a horizontal road, so alpha is equal to 0, then sine 0 is equal to 0. So there will not be any acceleration. Either the body will be at rest or the body will be moving with uniform velocity. If alpha is equal to 90 degree, then sine 90 will be 1 and Ax will be 0. Ax will be z, and the body will move with 9.8 meter per second square, or that is like a free fall, isn't it? So this is when the friction is 0. But when the friction is present, when mu k is not equal to 0, but um, mu k is not equal to 0, okay, but the body is moving with a uniform velocity, then there is no acceleration. Then what will happen? Ax becomes 0. Okay, and then becomes 0, and we will get yes, Ax is equal, oh sorry, Ax is equal to 0, and we will get g sin alpha is equal to mu k cos alpha, or g sin alpha is equal to mu k g cos alpha. So g will cancel, tan alpha is equal to mu k. So we'll get tan alpha is equal to mu k. Tan alpha is equal to mu k. Okay, and that brings us to the example of 5.16. Okay, so here you see for a particular angle, that is alpha is equal to tan inverse mu k, the body will move with constant velocity when there is friction. Okay, so alpha is equal to, in the presence of friction, this alpha is equal to tan inverse mu k is a is the is a it determines what will happen to the state of the body. If alpha exceeds tan inverse mu k, then the body will move with acceleration. If alpha is equal to tan inverse mu k, then the body will move with uniform velocity. And if alpha is less than tan inverse mu k, the body will stop moving. Then there are two more cases. Suppose alpha is equal to 0 degree. Now, if alpha is equal to 0 degree, you are dealing with a horizontal surface. Okay, but friction is not 0. Okay, so and mu k is not equal to 0. In that case, what will happen? The first term will be 0, and you will get ax is equal to minus mu k. That means the frictional force will be acting, and that will be opposite to the direction of motion. So naturally the velocity and the acceleration are oppositely directed, and gradually what will happen, mu k z, another g will be there, because cos alpha will be 1, so g mu k z. So this will be the acceleration of a body having body moving on a horizontal surface with friction. If alpha is equal to 90 degree, and suppose the friction is still there, then what will happen? Let us see. In that case, what will happen? Again, mu k is not equal to 0, but it doesn't have, whether mu k is 0 or mu k doesn't 0, alpha is equal to 90 degree will make the ax, because now the body will not be in contact with anybody, it's just like a free fall. So ax will become g, isn't it? In the earlier case also we are getting ax is equal to g, because now the friction's presence or absence doesn't matter, because there will not be any sliding, rather it will be a free fall. So we have discussed all these things in example 5.10, 5.16 and 5.17. So these are series of examples connected with friction. 5.10, 5.16, and this is 5.17, 5.16 and 5.17. Okay, now what will happen? Suppose now we will go to, so the last topic of this chapter is dynamics of circular motion. Now in the, while dealing with the dynamics of circular motion, you should be, because we have already read about many things, only I will tell about few misconceptions. Okay, just wait. So degree dynamics of circular motion. Now in the dynamics of circular motion,
Do you want to learn how to hack into systems as an ethical hacker? Check this. I've used
Are you able? Am I disconnected or connected? Oh, sorry. What is happening sometimes? Okay, now you are not able to see my screen also. Okay. So where I left actually, what I was now, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now a car, what I was now a car wants to take a turn. Okay, this car is taking a turn. So once, yeah, yes, what?
You left us all very behind, sir.
I am unable to listen. Dynamics of circular motion, yes. Oh, okay. Oh, acha, acha. So let me repeat it then. Okay, just I understand. So what actually I was telling in the dynamics of circular motion, we all know that in a circular motion, especially uniform circular motion, a body speed remains constant, but its velocity changes. That means due to the change in direction. Because the velocity is changing, then there is an acceleration, and because there is an acceleration, a force must have be there, a net force. So we can write for uniform circular motion, the magnitude of the net force as F net is equal to F net is equal to mv square by r, because first I will write it as m into a acceleration, because the acceleration is directed along the radius. That's why the acceleration is known as radial acceleration. So m a rad, and I have found out the value of the radial acceleration, that is v square by r, because my speed is constant. That's why I am able to take this v, and this is the radius of the circular track. Okay. What I was telling you, normally people think that we should also show a thing like centrifugal force. What does that mean? Suppose your body is making a circular motion, uniform circular motion like this, and you want to draw a free body diagram. So what you are going to show? You will show that one centripetal force is acting, which is towards the center. That you will show, and the weight you will show, isn't it? So this is how. But you cannot show this ma radial or mv square by r. That is wrong, because this is not a force. Force is on the left hand side of this Newton's second law. When I am writing Newton's second law, you see this F is equal to ma. On the right hand side, you do not have force term, you have ma term. But on the left hand side, you have force term, F term. So this F term are represented in the free body diagram, not the ma term. So this is correct. But if another fellow, what he did, he shows this force, and yes, what happened? If it shows this force, am I connected or I am disconnected?
Connected, sir.
I am connected now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this I explained earlier or not?
No, sir.
Yes. Probably I was disconnected. That's why I could not explain. Now this is correct way of representation. Okay. But if you are going to show another force as the centrifugal force like this acting oppositely, and you show it as mv square by r, then that is wrong. Because why that is wrong? I told you three reasons. Probably at that time I got disconnected. Why that is wrong? This you cannot show. This also you cannot show. Why you cannot show? If you bring another force, and then this force and this force will get cancelled, so the body will be in equilibrium, and then you will apply Newton's first law, and Newton's first law says that either the body is rest or the body will be moving along a straight line with constant speed, but your body is not doing that thing. So that's why the body is not in equilibrium. That you must understand. That is reason number one. And reason number two is that because its velocity is constantly changing in direction, the body accelerates and is not in equilibrium. Okay, that I have already told you as reason number one. And reason number two is, if there were an additional outward force that balanced the inward force, the net force would be zero and the body would move in a straight line, not in a circle. That also I have told you. Third reason is that because mv square by r is not a force, it corresponds to ma side of equation F is equal to ma, so it should not appear in sum of force. Okay, these are the three reasons. That's why you should not include this, and that is very common sense also. If the net force acting on the body will be zero, where from the body will get that extra this net force in order to change its direction of its velocity continuously. So this is not going to happen. So that was the only thing I was discussing on dynamics of circular motion. Then I took example 5.21. What was example 5.21? This was the example 5.21. At that time probably I got disconnected. A sports car is rounding a flat unbanked curve with radius r. If the coefficient of static friction between tires and road is μs, what is the maximum speed Vmax at which the driver can take the curve without sliding? And the result that I have quoted is I have found it out. I will show how I have reached this result. Now, if you look at this question, you will see that this is a track. This is the inner edge. Actually, this one is the inner edge of the road. Okay, this is the outer edge of the road. A car is taking a turn. This is the car which is taking a turn. The road is flat. Okay, that means no side is elevated compared to the other side. Both are at the same elevation. Okay, this is the radius of the circular track. And now the car, when it is taking a turn, that means it has to change its direction continuously. And for that, it needs a force. And that is what is called centripetal force. Now, where from this car will get that centripetal force to continuously change its direction? That is our objective. That is to find out. In order to do that, I will draw a free body diagram for the car. And as I have told you, in the free body diagram, I must show only the force and not this mv square by r kind of term. Okay, so now I will draw the free body diagram of the for the car, and I will show what are the forces that are acting on the car. Okay, so the first task is to reduce my car to a point. So I have reduced my car to a point. Then I will draw axis. So this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. Okay, then after this x-axis, y, what are the forces that is acting on the car? Yes, anybody who can say me, what are the forces acting on the car? Why your voice is, the sound is not clear. What are the forces acting on the car? Yes, what are the forces?
Downward.
One is weight downward. So I will represent the weight of the car downwards, or that is W is equal to mg. And the other thing, normal force upward, that also I will show, because the ground is flat or horizontal. So naturally the normal force will also be in the vertical direction. Okay, so this is my normal force. Any other force? Why this sound is not clear? I don't know. Why this is the problem lie with me or what? Let me, yes. What is is there any other force acting on the car?
Centripetal force.
No, don't bring this centripetal force. Don't bring this centripetal force. Centripetal acceleration, centripetal force, that will come actually a force which helps in circular motion has a special name, that is centripetal force. But what is that force in this question? Because once you say centripetal force, then there is in your mind that mv square by r torque, and that will create all kinds of nuisance, all kinds of problem. My point is that, because the car has a mass, so the earth will pull it. That's why weight is there, and you write weight is equal to mg. I understand that. That is very clear. Because the car is pushing the ground downwards, so the ground is also pushing the car upwards. That I also understand. That is the normal force. The normal force being applied by the ground on the car. That also I understand. Is there any other force that you can guess that is acting on the car? That is what I am telling you. Is there?
Sir,
Eh?
will there be frictional force?
Which force?
Frictional.
Frictional force. Frictional force between what and what?
Road and the car.
Road and the tires of the car. Road and the tires of the car. And what will be its direction? There are many directions. One is like this, another is like this, another is like this,
Negative
another is like this.
Radially inward.
Huh?
Radially inward.
Radial. That means I am just numbering, and you will tell me 1, 2, 3, 4. Which force I will take? Which number?
3.
3. 3 I will take. Yes, that is right. This you must understand very nicely, because in the next example, I will show about this thing. So there must be a horizontal force acting along the radius towards the center. That force, unless that force is there, the car cannot change its direction continuously. So where from this force comes? This force is coming from the friction between the tires of the car and the road surface. Okay, so I will call this as the force of static friction. Okay, the force of static friction. Now this force of static friction has a maximum value. What is the maximum value? That is known as Fs maximum, and that is equal to mu Sn. So the force of static friction can reach a maximum value, and that maximum value is Fs maximum is equal to mu Sn. So this is my net force, because along the y-axis there is no acceleration. So I will apply Newton's first law, and I will write sum of all Fy is equal to 0. And there are two forces on the left hand side. So I will write N minus W, and there is no ma term on the right hand side. So I will put 0. And finally I will get that N is equal to 0 W. That means entire weight is being balanced by the normal force. Okay, so remember this conclusion. But along the x-axis, I will apply Newton's second law. So I will write the Newton's second law first. Sum of all Fx is equal to max, isn't it? Sum of all Fx is equal to max. And there is only one force. Okay, that force is Fs maximum. So I can write this Fs maximum as mu Sn. And this Fs maximum is because it is the force which is responsible for changing the direction of the velocity vector continuously, keeping its magnitude constant. That's why it is known as a centripetal force. And for that centripetal force, we have already found out an expression. What is that? That is mv maximum square by r. Why I am putting this v max? Because that is the highest velocity that can be achieved, or that can be achieved safely, so that the mv square by r will become mu Sn. If your velocity exceeds from Vmax, then Vmax square by r on the right hand side will be greater than mu Sn, and the body will be unable to provide that much of centripetal force for that much of speed. So your car is going to topple. That you must understand, because your car can only reach a speed of will reach that speed whose square multiplied with mass divided by r must be equal to mu Sn. Okay, if it will be more, then you are gone. That you must understand. Okay, so now because n is equal to w and w is equal to mz, so I can write the left hand side as mu s mz, mu s mz is equal to mu s mz is equal to m v maximum square by r, v maximum square, v maximum square by r. Okay, now this m get cancelled and you got v maximum square, v maximum square is equal to mu s gr, mu s gr, mu s gr. So Vmax is equal to, so this Vmax I will get it as a square root of mu s gr, which I have got in this. You see, Vmax is equal to mu s gr. Now what does this mean? This means that your maximum velocity that you can reach your car, the highest speed with which the car can negotiate this curve of radius r, having a coefficient of static friction mu s at a place whose acceleration due to gravity is z, is equal to square root of mu s gr. But if by his misfortune there will be some water in the road, some ice in the road, then mu s will be reduced. So mu s will be reduced means your centripetal force will be reduced. Your centripetal force will be reduced means your Vmax will also have a smaller value. But if you ride your car with this Vmax, then there is every possibility that you will be in problem. So though the theoretical specification of Vmax is equal to root over mu s gr, it is advisable to ride, to negotiate that curve with a speed which is less than Vmax. Though that is possible, but you should be careful in not reaching that value. So in this example, inside the example, there is a small illustration which will show you the values, and you can appreciate the, yes. Is anybody
Sir,
telling
can you explain?
which one?
Yes, sir.
Which
Sir, can you
one?
explain about it?
Which one?
Sir, this
Which one?
example only which you just raised.
Oh, where this example, this example 5.21, you mean this rounding a flat curve?
Yes, yes,
This one?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Where is the problem? You see, tell me so that we can go. Yes. What is the problem? Why you fail to understand? Where are the problems? You just tell me.
yes, sir. That can you explain why that friction we are considering
Yes.
static friction but not kinetic friction, but the body is in motion?
Oh, oh, okay. Oh, because the body is in motion, where we are not taking the kinetic friction, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
No, you see, kinetic friction is normally what is happening. The body, the friction starts not with a kinetic friction, but with a static friction. So when the car is on the road and the car is gradually trying to, actually in this problem you have to understand certain things very well. Actually the sports car is rounding a flat unbanked curve with a radius r. If the coefficient of static friction between tires and road is mu s, what is the maximum speed Vmax at which the driver can take the curve without sliding? Okay, so normally what is happening, because you are deriving the maximum speed, so you must equate it with the maximum force of friction available with you. So the maximum force of friction is the force of is the maximum force of static friction. Number one. Now the car's acceleration as it rounds the curve has magnitude A radial is equal to v square by r, that you understand. Hence the maximum speed Vmax corresponds to the maximum acceleration A radial and to the maximum horizontal force on the car towards the center of its circular path. Because what is the target variable, or what we are going to expect is going to find out, is the maximum speed of the car. Okay, so maximum speed of the car means there must be a maximum force available which will support that speed. The only horizontal force acting on the car is the friction force exerted by the road. So in order to solve this problem, we will need Newton's second law, the equations of uniform circular motion, and our knowledge of the frictional forces from section 5.3. This is all I am reading out from the book. Now the free body diagram includes the car's weight and the two forces exerted by the road, the normal force and the horizontal friction force. The friction force must point toward the center of the circular path in order to cause the radial acceleration. The car doesn't slide toward or away from the center of the circle. So the friction force is static friction. Yes, here it has very clearly mentioned. Who has asked me that questions? Very good question. Who is she?
Me, sir.
Mihika. Good. Now here is the mention of your the answer to your question. Remember, clearly listen to this thing. The car does not slide towards or away from the center of the circle. Okay, that is very important. Because who is holding the car, or who is providing the centripetal acceleration. Otherwise you will see why I am taking the one thing, because the car is moving in this direction. So naturally, if the frictional force opposes, then the frictional force would act in this direction. Mihika, are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Why I will not take kinetic friction? If I can take kinetic friction, then the friction must act opposite to the what?
Motion.
Opposite to the motion. Your car is moving in this direction. So in which direction the force must act? Opposite to it.
Yes,
but
sir.
will it be a centripetal force? Will it be a force which can support a circular motion?
No, sir.
No, because this is the inner edge of the road. This was the outer edge of the road. Your car is coming like this. Okay, so if the direction of the car is in this direction, then the direction of the frictional force will oppose this motion. So how can you expect this force to be in this direction? That can only possible with force of static friction, because the car has a tendency not to be curved, because the car always wants to move away from the center. That is very important. You have raised a very valid questions. Very nice. Actually, we'll discuss it here for at least few minutes. Now you see, now you can ask me, sir, why are you taking this frictional force in this direction? Does the car has a tendency to move opposite to it? That means, yes, the car has a tendency to move opposite to it, because the car doesn't want that curve. Because you are pulling. You see, suppose I have tied a stone like this, and I just want to whirl it around me like this. The stone doesn't want to move along this circle. No, it doesn't want. It always wants to fly along a straight line. But I am pulling the stone continuously at each point. That's why the stone is forced to move in this circular orbit. Similarly, the car has a tendency to move away from the center. That you must understand. That is the crucial word. This car has a tendency to move away from the center. That is its natural tendency. Who is trying to bring the car from that away, from that flying away towards the center? Who is doing that?
Force of static friction.
Force of static friction. That you must understand. Good, very good. because you see, if I will cut this force of static friction, then the car is not going to move in this direction. The car has a tendency to move away from the car. That means the car will move away. Away means either in this direction the car will move. So the car has naturally the car wants to move away from the center, but the frictional force is trying to resist that tendency of the car to move away from that center. That is what actually happens. We apply a force to counter the frictional force, isn't it? That is how, that's why this force, we are not taking the kinetic friction, because if we take kinetic friction, then the force of kinetic friction.
That's
Yes.
a kinetic friction, right?
Yes.
Kinetic friction is on the body, right?
Yes.
Then why when we are not including kinetic friction?
That's why we are not including the kinetic friction, because if we include the kinetic friction, the kinetic frictional force is not acting in this direction, opposite direction. That is what I am telling.
Yes,
Because
yes, got it, sir, got it. We are only considering those forces which are acting in that circular, related to that circular motion, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
We,
got it.
yeah, we cannot include the force of kinetic friction, because the kinetic friction will not be able to provide the required centripetal force, because its direction is different. Is it okay? That is the important thing. The car doesn't slide towards or away from the center of the circle, so the frictional force is static. That is the crucial word. Okay. So with a maximum magnitude, F max is equal to mu s n. So because the car has a tendency to just move away, and that is being in check due to the force of static friction, that's why we are considering the static friction case and not kinetic friction. That is what I understand, and I don't know how far I have been able to explain you, but you have raised a very nice thing. Okay, so that is what, at least two things I will say, because the force of kinetic friction will be acting opposite to the direction of motion of the car, so that doesn't have any role in the treatment of this centripetal force. So the car, because the car, otherwise how can you explain the presence of the static friction? If the force of static friction is in this direction, so there must be a tendency in the opposite direction. The car must be trying to move away from the center. That's why the force of static friction is trying to bring it back towards the center. That is the only explanation, I think, which is feasible, or which can be logically consistent. I hope, Mika, I have probably, at least I have
Yes, sir.
attempted a little answer. So you should not be satisfied. You should not be happy that I have explained everything to you. But your question is very valid. Your question is very nice. Okay, you have elevated the discussion. So thank you very much, and try to look more about this. If you know more, then you share those ideas with us. We will also be enriched. Okay. Now, yes, we have got still 13 minutes. So probably we have reached all these values and all these things, that those are not important. Still there is a small problem inside the example. So that I will do, and we will go to the next example. Okay, what is that thing? Just let me tell you. Just here. So there is a road, flat road, and that is a flat curve, and the R is given. Its value is 230 meter. Just to give you an idea of the problem, 230 meter, and then mu s is also given. That is 0.296. Mu s is equal to 0.96. Okay. So what should be the maximum speed? We should calculate. So I am going to use my formula. So square root of mu s gr, and that is equal to 0.96 into 9.8 into 230 into 230. I am not using the unit. Finally, I will write meter per second. Okay. And if I do the calculations, I will get 47 meter per second. 47 meter per second, which is equivalent to, because we are familiar with kilometer per hour, so this is equivalent to 170 kilometer per hour. That means in a road which is not banked and which has a friction of 0.96, in that road, if you want to take a turn, then your permissible maximum speed is 170 kilometer per hour. More speed means your centripetal force needed will be more, and that cannot be supplied by the force of maximum static friction, because the force of maximum static friction can support a speed of 170 kilometer per hour. More than that, it cannot support. Still, it is expected and advised that you should drive your car or your bike less than this speed, because you don't know when the friction will be less. Because if there is a rain and the water is there in the road, so naturally the friction will be less. So the limit of the maximum velocity will also decrease, but you will travel with 170 kilometer per hour, means you will topple, you will skid from the road. That is one. Okay. Is it clear to you? Now we'll go to the next example, example 5.2, where now what will happen? There will be certain physical situations where it is not possible to negotiate a curve with some velocity. Why this is not possible? Because you see, if there is, suppose, no friction, you are residing in a country where there is continuous snowfall and your house lies in a corner, you have to take a turn, and road is filled up with ice, watery ice, so the friction is almost like a zero, and in that case what will happen? Your Vmax will be zero. That means there is no speed at which the force of static friction can support, or your centripetal force, you cannot generate a centripetal force for the in order to negotiate this curve. Then what you are going to do? In that case, this will come to your handy. This is what is the term banked curve. Now, what is banked curve? That I will tell you. First, look at the problem. For a car traveling at a certain speed, it is possible to bank a curve at just the right angle so that no friction at all is needed to maintain the car's turning radius. Then a car can safely round the curve even on wet ice. At what angle beta should the curve in example 5.21 be banked? Okay. Am I audible to all of you, or am I disconnected, or I am still connected?
Connected, sir.
Connected. Good. So what is the problem? Why we are talking of banking of curve? Can anybody explain why we are talking of banking of curve? The friction was there. The friction was providing us the force. We are able to negotiate a curve. We are able to turn our vehicle. But why then the banking of the curve is needed? Can anybody say why the banking of the curve is needed? Because in a frictionless situation, and there are so many situations where the friction is extremely negligible, in that case it will be difficult on your part to negotiate a curve. Why? Suppose take the example of a train. Now the train is approaching a sharp bend. Then the friction between the train wheels and the railway tracks is very, very less. So how come that centripetal force will be provided so that the train can take a curve safely? In that case, what happens? Normally, what they will do? This is the inner edge. This is the outer edge. So in comparison to the inner edge, the car will tilt like this. Because why the car will tilt while moving? Because in comparison to the inner edge, this is the horizontal road, and there is a banking elevation of the outer edge by an angle beta, that you must understand. That means if anybody will come to this road, then there will be automatically a tilting. The side which is towards the center will be at a lower height, and the side which will be towards the outer edge will be at a higher elevation. So why we do this thing? Can anybody explain? So you see, this is a beautiful way of finding why we are doing this. Who was providing the centripetal force in the earlier example? Who was providing that force? Who was providing the necessary centripetal force? The frictional force. Now the frictional force is no more. The frictional force is absent. But you want to take a turn. So how come that be possible? That can only be possible by banking the curve. What is banking of the curve? Elevating the outer edge compared to the inner edge of the road. The outer edge will be at a higher elevation than the inner edge, and that is what is called banking of the curve. And we want to find out, that means the inner one is at the horizontal level. Where was the road? At that height. But in comparison to this, it is at a higher height, isn't it? You see this will be the height. Okay, you can find out the 10 beta. 10 beta will be this by this, isn't it? From that you can find out this beta. Okay, but if the angle is very small, then 10 beta is also equal to beta. So what we are going to do? Now you see there are certain misconceptions here. While we was dealing with an inclined plane, if you have remembered, if there is a body here, and if I want to draw the free body diagram of that body, what I was doing? Can anybody say? What I was doing? I was taking a set of axes, inclined axis. This was my x-axis, just like the inclined plane. And then I was drawing the perpendicular. That was my y-axis. Then I was showing the forces. One is the weight acting vertically downwards. The other was perpendicular to the surface, which was the normal. Then I was splitting my weight into two components, one w cos theta and the other w sin theta. This was w cos theta and this was w sin theta. The w cos theta was responsible for countering the normal force, and w sin theta was giving the was acting on the body, which was depending upon its value. Either the body will be at rest, or the body will move with uniform velocity, or the body will move with a constant acceleration. That we have discussed. But now I am not going to take a set of inclined axes, but I will take only horizontal and vertical axis while drawing my free body diagram. Why? Can anybody say why I will do that like that? This is also a very crucial question, as Mihika has very rightly asked about why we are not going to take the kinetic friction in that problem. Similarly, of that importance, this question is also carrying that importance. Why I will take a set of horizontal and vertical axis and not this inclined axis as I was doing earlier? Can you say? Any guess? Yes? Can you say? Am I audible or I am disconnected? I am connected now?
Audible, sir. Connected.
Audible. Why? Any guess? Anything you can say? That is very important. You should not be bothered by right and wrong. Don't think that I know the answers of the entire world, or you know everything. I am not expecting anything from you. I am only expecting that you should ask questions and you should commit mistakes. Now, why cannot I take a set of these axes? Because I am interested to find out the horizontal force acting along the radius towards the center, because that is what will be responsible for changing the direction of the body continuously. Because I am least interested to find out my centripetal force in this direction. No, this is not. my centripetal force will act horizontally towards the center, because I am considering this as the circle which is at the horizontal level, and this will be my, and this is the radius. So I am interested to find out the force which is acting horizontally towards the center. That is this, not this. But now if somebody will ask you, sir, I want to take a inclined set of axes, can I do this problem? Yes, you can do the problem, but again you have to find out the component, the horizontal component, which will be your centripetal force, that you must understand. So what makes it complicated? Why should I take a set of inclined axes, then I will find out a horizontal component which will be my centripetal force? That will complicate the problem. So it is better to take a set of axes, horizontal and vertical, perpendicular to each other. So now I will take that, and then we will probably, I have got only 1 minute, so I will take so I will take like this. Okay, so my weight will act vertically downwards, but my normal force will act like this. So now I will resolve my normal force into two components, because this will be my beta. So now it is up to you. I have made a mistake because I have measured my beta like this. I can measure my beta like this. This is my right way. But here I can take 90 degree minus beta. Okay, 90 degree minus beta will be the angle. Okay, if 90 degree minus beta, then sine 90 degree minus beta will be my y component, which is nothing but cos beta. And cos 90 degree minus beta will be my x component, which is nothing but sine beta. Isn't it? So now, or I can make the mistake, the opposite will be sine beta. So this will be my sine beta, and this adjacent will be my cos beta. So this will be my sine beta. Okay, sine beta and sine beta, and this will be my n. Oh, so yes, and this will be my n cos beta. So n cos beta will be along the y-axis, which will balance the weight, and n sine beta will be the unbalanced or the net force, which will give me the required centripetal force. So we will discuss these things in the coming class along with the assignment exercises. So let me stop it here. Okay, so we'll meet in the next class. So thank you very much for your attention. So hope to meet in the next class. Okay. Okay, thank you.